All the buttons.
All right, we are back, and we have Beavercreek School Board candidate Nathan Boone with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, so Nathan graduated from Beavercreek in 2008. He is currently a public defender and a guardian ad litem in Greene County.
Correct.
Yeah, and he is a youth wrestling and soccer coach and a husband and dad to 4 young kids under 9. So you are busy.
Busy, plenty busy.
Yes.
But always make time. You always have to make time for everything you get involved in. And one of the things I'm excited about, because I get to be involved with a lot of different things with my work and my family.
That's
So-
awesome. So what made you want to run for school board?
You know, the funny thing is that's probably the hardest question I ever answer and it's usually the easy one, I think, for most people, but it's tough for me because I never wanted to run. I don't like politics. I can't stand doing this system in general, but my mom's a school teacher, and the funny thing is we share student clients sometimes, but she always pushed me to try to get more involved and do more with kids and the things that I work with. She's always suggested I should look at a school board race because I'm doing very similar things. But it wasn't until I went to a few meetings that it kind of really pushed me to get more involved in that system.
So what did you see at those meetings?
A lot of talk about legal cases and politics and ironically, right? You know, the voucher is the current argument right now, and there's a lot of things going on with that lawsuit. But the board's bringing experts to talk about law, and I'm a lawyer. But I didn't hear the things I wanted to hear, which is the kind of kids I work with on a day-to-day basis, and that's what I struggled to see. So I wanted to bring that conversation back to the table. I think that's something that we need to focus more on.
Okay. So I think Beavercreek is in a interesting predicament right now because they're growing too fast
Really fast.
for the school system to keep up. My kids go to Beavercreek, and they're at Trebine specifically is the newest school, and it's already in trailers.
It seems like it was built with trailers.
Really?
Really.
Yeah. And so I feel like the school board had some kind of a plan, but they wanted lots of money for it, and the voters were like, come up with another plan.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, and to me, it's not about money. It's about the trust that I think is to a certain degree eroded between the school board and the people. Because weirdly enough, the graduating class I had in 2008 was actually larger than last year's. My parents' graduating class was one of the largest Beavercreek ever had, and that was in 1988. And so the numbers are fluctuating quite a bit. The smaller schools, or I guess the younger schools, I think see a higher population. I mean, it's a military community, so
Yeah.
the numbers don't stay
They're
very
going to
stable.
fluctuate.
Yeah.
But you know, those trailers were there when I was in school, and they, like you said, Trebine has trailers already.
Yeah.
And so it's a compounding problem that the school board, unfortunately, can't have that much of a direct solution in that problem. Because you got to build to the capacity you have, not the one that you predict in the future.
Interesting.
So why don't you build to what you think you're going to grow to?
Well, you got to ask the community for that kind of money. And right now, the community is having a hard time wanting to pay that money. I mean, I think Beavercreek's in a unique spot where it's all property tax. And so, and property tax, as we well know right now, is a hot button issue.
That is.
Especially all around the state. But Beavercreek's unique. We don't have an alternative for that. So getting rid of the property tax is going to be a pretty big issue that needs to be tackled.
So you, as a future school board member, how would you propose that they deal with that?
Well, the first and foremost, again, I think the priorities need to be adjusted. I don't think it's about getting the money, so to speak. It's about rebuilding the trust with the community. Because when you ask for emergency levies that are reoccurring, then they stop feeling like emergencies. You know, it's like when you
Poor planning.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You know, when you drive out of your house and you drive across a bumpy road, but you pay taxes towards getting those roads fixed all the time. And then the community keeps asking for more money for roadways, but you don't see the work. You don't see the improvements.
Right.
You don't see the investments. Right? You get this brand new school building, Coy and Trebine. They're already looking at replacing the lighting in that building. That's almost $1 million fix. It was just built. And we've got trailers all over it, and there's going to be a new funding system that needs to be put in place. And I'm hoping our community can do that before the property tax issue gets on the ballot. I think that'll pass.
Yeah, property taxes are one of our hot topics here on
Yeah.
the Realty, and it's really one of the topics that gets the most views from our viewers on social media or wherever this is posted.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think the biggest question, especially because of the school aspect, nobody wants to say, you know, not fund the schools and not give the kids an opportunity for that future development that they need. but there has to be some accountability, and there has to be transparency
Yeah.
to those budgets. So obviously not putting you on the hot seat, even though you are officially, that is really what the people are looking for. You know, they want to say, if my property taxes are based off of this unrealized gain that I don't have any benefit of, but I'm getting charged more for.
Yeah.
And the schools have already done a poor system of, maybe they're not getting the better grades that they need to be doing, right? Because that does come back to it. That's gonna be an interesting push to see if the levies aren't gonna pass, your budget has to be able to stand. What other revenue sources do you think are possible?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said with community involvement in that kind of system. Reaching out on the community, the organizations, the businesses to help donate to that. I mean, every single chunk you can take out of the overall asking price for a new building makes it easier to bring to the voters. You know, but the current system right now, I feel like the schools are running on emergency renewal levies for general operating.
Correct.
And so now we get this levy fatigue because we have to ask for these levies just to maintain our status, let alone asking for new money for new buildings. And so we're going to have to get back into, we're going to have to bring the community back to the table. We're going to have a real conversation about what needs to be done. You know, one of the unique things when I started running, gathering signatures and just talking to people, was the amount of reasons why people rejected this new school plan.
Yeah,
It wasn't just the money.
Yeah.
It was the location. It was the infrastructure. It was the woods. It was the size of it, the amount of stadiums. There were so many reasons.
everything that goes with it. Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
but that told me there was never a chance for it to pass.
right.
And so if the community felt more involved, they wouldn't be so surprised when they showed up on election day to see what the ask is.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to get to a point where we can build these schools, the community has to be part of the conversation in making the plans, or else they're never going to vote for it.
So when these plans for the mega campus and all of that started, was there any community involvement or any kind of a committee, board,
See,
something?
I wish I was part of those conversations because I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what plans were brought forward and rejected, and what land could have been used, what remodeling could have been done. You know, where the current high school is a great location, but of course there's 2 buildings on there that are now a campus. You know, and there's a lot of potential, I think, in that land for reuse for this. I mean, my parents graduated from the same building that I graduated from, so obviously something needs to be done there. But without knowing exactly what was accepted or rejected plan-wise, but I don't know if anyone in the community knows that, and that is the problem.
And I think a part of that is that if you have students and you have children that are needing to go to those school systems, getting the information, having access to it is a little bit easier, but it's a group of people who no longer have children that are attending those school systems, who the burden of those property taxes is still falling to, that are disconnected, not getting that information, and therefore it's a harder push to say, bring them to the table.
Yeah, it is, and I think we have to get creative about that.
Yep.
You know, in my work as a guardian ad litem, and this is probably not a shock to either of you, there's not a lot of resources in the juvenile system. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of embarrassing. But in order to do the job, that means you have to involve everyone you can that's in this kid's life, everyone who could be helpful, every organization, every charity that could add something to this situation to help put this kid on a better path. That's something we need to do better of as a community and as a board, is get everyone involved and find unique and creative situations where we can involve everyone. You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fairborn's new school had a large community investment towards that. It wasn't just the school pulling levy
Right.
money. And so that's something Beavercreek needs. But ultimately, I think the community is going to be more willing to pay for a grand school if everyone was part of the process, if everyone had a hand in it. You know, everyone that I talked to had a unique reason why they didn't like it. But if we didn't have those unique reasons, we get more likely chance of passing this levy for new school, which is something we do need. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's remodeling, whether the sizes of classes are changing or not, ultimately that building is old. I mean, again, my parents graduated from that building. So it's a matter of time before that a new building does need to be built.
Yeah.
But where and how?
So you talked about little resources, and one of your other platforms on why you're running is because teachers are stretched thin with limited resources. So I wanted to talk about that and how you think that can be fixed. Because I do hear that all the time, especially on social media. You'll see like GoFundMe's where teachers will put it out there like, I need books for my classroom or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's always been a crazy thing to me to live in the country we do, and we have to GoFundMe for medical bills and for teachers and for first responders. That it blows my mind.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think we ask too much of the teachers, and that's really one of the big problems. Right, the teacher is supposed to be someone who provides education, and that's it. But they're not. They're also the people who are supposed to step in for bullying and provide mental health services and make referrals. They're doing too many things. The schools are stretched thin for that reason. But again, when the community doesn't understand where the money's going, they're less likely to get the money. And I think there was a center around here that had made a good example that when you show a picture of leaky pipes and you ask for an emergency levy, and then you ask for a renewal of that, then everyone wonders, were the leaky pipes fixed?
Right.
Wasn't that what it was for?
Yeah.
So it becomes an operating budget.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So again, there needs to be money that comes in. The community's going to have to be willing to pay for the things that they need to fund the schools, and the teachers make sure they have resources. I remember though back when I was in school, getting extra credit for bringing in tissue boxes and hand sanitizer,
Yeah.
which is a shame. But those things aren't an extraordinary cost. It's a small cost that builds up, becomes a big number. But when the money's properly used in that system, I think to get there, we have to ease the burden of the teachers and how many things they have to be working with, while also showing the community that this money is going directly towards these things.
So you talked about teachers are dealing with mental health, and are you talking about because they're mandated reporters for seeing kids struggling or being abused or whatever, that type of thing? Or I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
and
that's one of the big ones too. Just like law enforcement, I think we rely on them to do everything we can get them to rely on. General purpose employee. But that stretches them too thin. It's outside of the wheelhouse. I mean, they went to college to learn how to be an educator, not a mental health provider or social worker. And actually, there's a few local schools around our area that I work with as a guardian ad litem that have some very unique and creative solutions, staff that they bring in that have shown really great results. And so I think taking off that burden and putting it towards a new program would be beneficial. But when it comes to making sure teachers have the supplies they need, that should be the first expectation before we start looking at the next things.
Yeah.
And I know Beavercreek did special funding for the barricades, the door locks, in case there was an event. I think Beavercreek was one of our school systems that had that. Is that still the case, or?
I believe so. I
Okay.
believe they have a lot of safety systems in, but I think that's something that's kind of becoming mandated. The lawsuit potential of that alone, if something were to happen,
Yeah.
you can't be the one school that doesn't have that.
Right.
So, those things are important. I think Beaver Creek's actually getting a new auditory system put into the schools, which is a great program. But of course, if you don't have pens and paper, we can't jump to the next step. We have to make sure that we've shored up the simplistic things first before we keep jumping forward. And again, that's where the community's trust is eroding, is we're seeing these new pet projects, but teachers are crowdsourcing pens, paper, tissues.
Yeah, true. All right. And so that kind of goes into your next one, is little family involvement in the school. So I know we've talked about the community, but what about the actual families that are going to the school?
Yeah, and the fun thing that I've learned through this process is the enormous amount of homeschool and private school families in Beaver Creek. I mean, the percentage-wise, compared to most communities around here, Beaver Creek's one of the highest. And I think that's because the parents don't know what's going on in the school. And COVID certainly highlighted a lot
For
of
sure.
that.
Yeah.
But a parent needs to feel like they understand where their kid's going to, who's going to be interacting with the kid's going to be safe, happy, and healthy. But in my job as a public defender, I often get families that come in. The parents bring me the emails and the letters they've sent. And they're like, I haven't gotten a response to this. I don't know what's going on. My kid took the matters into their own hands, and now we're here in criminal court for that. There's, again, I think COVID really put a spotlight on that deficiency, that the parents don't feel like the school is part of the community.
Yeah.
And that, again, needs to be repaired. And that's a high priority in my opinion. Because to do my job with the limited resources, the lack of information I have going into it, the parents know best. Almost always, right? There's exceptions, but the parents know best.
Yeah.
The parents need to be part of it. And again, the more you involve the community, the more they're willing to provide income, financial assistance to the school, and vote for a levy.
Yeah.
And help in those classrooms, because
Correct.
I think that's a big part of it with PTA and volunteers and things like that. But with the majority of people, two-family incomes, people are working, even if they're doing side hustles and everything, you're taking away from that opportunity to be a part of that. with the military community. You're again restricted on what you're able to go and do, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I think that factor into specifically Beavercreek for that.
Yeah. I think bringing them to the table is definitely one of the highest priorities we have here. We got to make it easier, right? Televising a board meeting is great. Putting it on YouTube so people can watch is great. But where's the community involvement in that? Where's the ability for the people watching to type in questions? And the board can go back and look at the video. And when we talked about this, there was a high volume of this conversation. And we need to be addressing that. We need to be including that.
For sure.
More systems for parents to get involved is a
Yeah.
beneficial thing. And like you said, and I love that, because one of the programs I was just talking about, it's similar to the COPP program that Beavercreek has, taking volunteers and having their assistance within the school. It cuts costs, provides safety and other resource,
Sure.
that we can bring in. So, parents just need to be able to trust their schools. That's a big
Absolutely.
factor.
Absolutely, and that comes from the communication, like you said, and having ways to ask the questions and get a reasonable answer in a reasonable time, but also to have at least some basis to say, this isn't just a generic answer that is canned and going out to
Yeah.
everybody, right? It's like the letters you get, it's like, what does this have to do with my kid in this class? So
Yeah.
there's just has to be that better communication
Yeah.
all the way around.
So recently, there was a bill passed, and I think it's a law now that military families can do open enrollment wherever.
Yeah.
Did Beavercreek see a spike?
So I'm not sure
Anyone
if there
else?
was a recent spike, because I think generally the military families are always coming and going. And I think right now we're seeing a higher level of unenrollment for private and homeschooling. And so in general, it's hard, I think, to put and attribute that law to the changing in population for Beavercreek.
Okay.
But certainly there's a lot of moving that comes and goes. I think a lot of military families try to coordinate that around the school year, so they're not pulling the kid in the middle. So I would doubt that there's a heavy mid-year transfer.
Yeah.
But certainly it's something that happens.
Okay. So you had talked a little bit about bullying being on the rise and students struggling with mental health and teachers having to deal with that. Are there any programs that you feel like you would like to bring forward to, hey, this fixes the teachers being stretched thin?
Yeah. So first I have to say, you're never going to fix bullying. It's never going away.
Right.
Right.
Adults still bully
Exactly.
each other.
Exactly. So then that's point number one, is I think a lot of people, you see parents walking out in public with their kids, they're on their best behavior. They're an example. But they forget that when they go online. And they forget that their kids are online too, and they see that.
Yeah.
And they emulate that. Right? So you can't ever stop it in social media. But our parents can do better. Our parents can truly do better with that and how they regulate their communication with others. But as far as programming goes, there's a school, it's West Carrollton is one of them. Kettering has some. There's a few other schools around that has a program which is essentially a person whose sole job is to work on the bullying and mental health problem. In fact, West Carrollton had an 80% reduction in fights in the first year, is my understanding. I could be a little wrong on that statistic, but it's pretty close to that, which I think is tremendous. You add in a similar program to the COPPs in Beavercreek. You have people patrolling the hallways, gathering information. But the thing I found interesting when I do my job as a guardian ad litem, I reach out to teachers. Let them know the kid may be a handle with care kid, or just figure out how they're doing in classrooms, where the bullying is, and how the systems. And then I get curious, I ask a lot of questions. And what I found was that teachers don't like sending the email. Because if they send the email and they're wrong, now they're going to get bullied, or they're going to get in trouble. Principals don't like receiving the email, because if they don't do something, now there's liability attached. Nobody wants to create the paper trail, which means no one wants to be the person that reports. Because God forbid you wrongly accuse a kid for bullying because everyone's saying they are, but now you've in a way bullied the kid by attaching a label to him like that. So it's a very, very finicky situation for teachers to have to handle. But this program, I believe they call them restorative coaches in West Carrollton, but there's similar programs in a lot of school districts. This is a person who's on social media with the kids. They're talking with the kids. They're interacting with people, and they're receiving information, emails from all kinds of sources, whether it's kids or teachers or administrators. Hey, I heard this, I saw this. There's no file generated. There's no reports generated. It just lets this person know, hey, I can pull them from lunch or from recess, maybe a non-graded class, and have a conversation. Two people are close to fighting. Let's get them in a room and have a discussion. Let's settle this. Right? Let's, maybe this person isn't eating lunch. Is it because of bullying? Is it because of poverty? Or is it both? This person can get intervened in that system and help refer to services.
More
or
of a
figure out-
preemptive
Yeah.
stat, and then instead of waiting until something happens
Exactly.
to address it.
Because the big problem is if you see bullying and you report it, does it go right to punishment? Do you go to rehabilitation? Do you kick them out of school? And that affects their education.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so we're trying to divert kids onto a positive path, not punish them for stepping out of the path they're on. And this takes that to a more holistic and helpful system without labeling or creating reports or attaching liabilities.
Yeah. So is there any, I don't know what the word would be, like help from the juvenile court?
So I know the juvenile court, especially in Greene County, is highly interested in new programs that can help divert these kids. In fact, the juvenile system, as well as myself, we went to Georgetown University to do a whole overhaul. We were one of the local representatives representing small rural communities to do a whole overhaul in the juvenile system. So we're always looking for new things that we can do. We have probation officers in every school district. They're fantastic. They get a lot of information too. But there's always things we're trying to do to divert the kids away from the formal systems and try to look for diverting paths, programs and assistances. For me, it's communities. I love having more and more communities for the kids to be a part of. I mean, personally, that kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
constant wrestling and weight cutting and soccer when I wasn't wrestling. And I didn't have time to get in deep trouble, just little bits of trouble, because I was too busy doing other things, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what keeps the parents busy,
Yeah.
is keeping all of the kids in the different activities and things that they want, so that they do stay in a structure and stay hopefully out of trouble at that point.
And have a reason to want to go to school, right?
Right.
And have a reason to want to succeed in school, because you all have friends there. And usually it's easiest to make friends when you're in a community.
Yep. So going into a school board that already exists, you know, there's got to be stuff, we've talked about everything that they can improve on or that you can improve on as being a new school board member. What are they doing right?
So one of the highest qualities of education to the lowest cost in Ohio, and that's phenomenal, you know. But that's, again, that's not something a lot of people know, right? That should be a bragging point.
Right.
Yeah.
But our community, most don't know that,
I didn't.
right?
And I'm a
so,
Beavercreek voter.
yeah, and you see those statistics, and then you see ask for more money. And so the people that work in the schools and on the levies, they know that statistic. So they're proud of it, and they should be. Our board and our schools have always done a phenomenal job of having excellent athletic programs, excellent academic programs, a multitude of different organizations for kids to be part of. You know, the just general financial system that's in place for our schools is actually very efficient, which is why it is frustrating that levies can't pass. But at the same time, that speaks to the issue that no one is speaking about, which is what I want to bring in. That is, the community has to be part of this. They have to be part of every step and every conversation, because the public schools is by definition a community program. So the community has to be part of it. And actually, if you think about what a Board of Education is, because I'm not a teacher, right? Most of the people on the Board of Education aren't teachers, and in most Board of Educations. They're just community members who want to get involved, who want to make sure things are getting done and be part of the process. And those are the people who hire and fire the treasurer and the superintendent and set policy, is community members. So if that's the case, if the schools are run by community, then shouldn't the community be part of every decision? They should be part of every factor. There should always be more transparency, more open, and more involvement. And that's
Yeah.
really what I want to push for.
That makes sense for sure.
This is a 2-year term, or?
4-year
It's a
term.
4-year term, and you are not currently in that position, so this
I
is a
am not.
new position for you. And so what we'll say is that right now, you know, the big discussion with the property taxes and the cost of the schools, and how does, you know, the community pay for that when maybe the part of the community doesn't have any children in those school systems. One of the questions that comes up is, what's our cost per student? You kind of alluded to this, that you have maybe a low number in this area for Beavercreek. So in the future, maybe this is a conversation that we would like to get an update from you, is how does that fall in the parameter? Because I've heard everywhere from $15,000 a student to $40,000 a student. And to that point, community being aware of how much that value is for those students getting that education, how is that manageable if it's at the higher price and they're still not getting what they need, or they're not performing to those levels that would be, you know, passing grades?
Well, again, I think it's a compounding problem, right? Because If you look, the Board of Education, they publish their numbers, so they're readily available, but how many people just
They
Google
don't.
Beavercreek School Board, and I wonder what the financials look
Well,
like,
some
right?
will now.
Yeah, hopefully. But if it's a compounding problem, it's solved with transparency, and it's solved with
Exactly.
communication and discussion. Because at Beavercreek, and they are doing well for cost per pupil education compared to comparable schools, we've got an excellent rating. We always get excellent ratings. We're a great school. And so the money that we're putting in is yielding the results we want. But there's still a disconnect and there's a
Right.
friction.
Right.
And so that's the trouble I have, right? If you look at your internet company, you're not paying a lot and you're getting great internet, you're not complaining.
Right.
Well, we're paying the low amount and we're performing exceptional, but yet they're still complaining.
Right.
But instead of addressing the complaints, we're shutting the doors. We're making it harder to communicate. And we're getting, as you said, sometimes canned response or no responses from things. And again, that shouldn't be the case because everyone on that board is an elected official who's accountable to the people.
Right.
Shouldn't be questions unanswered. We have nothing to hide. The
Yeah.
schools are phenomenal. The teachers are phenomenal. The programs are phenomenal. I went there. My wife went there. My parents went there. I've got a lot of history in Beavercreek. I don't see the complaints other than the fact that the community doesn't feel like they're at the table in these decisions.
Right.
And that's reflected in the voting history.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being on today.
I appreciate
and
it.
Opening up, answering some of these questions that we're throwing at you, but also
Absolutely.
just for all the work. It's phenomenal, some of the things that you've done.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure that that's just the start of everything that you've been involved with, but
This
we
is just the
appreciate
start.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of plans, a lot of things I'd like to do in life, but they all revolve around kids. It's become a passion of mine. I like working with kids wherever I can. And up till now, it's always been one kid at a time. So I'm hoping to bring that to a broader audience, a little bit more efficient, right? That's what we're trying to be, is
Take
efficient.
those dad
Yeah.
skills to the next
Exactly.
level. There you
Exactly.
So if listeners want to contact you, ask a question, what are your socials? What are your website?
I have a Facebook profile right now. It's Boone on the Ballot. I don't have a website. This is my first campaign, and I actually decided to do this election about a month before I entered it, which was the beginning of July. So,
Okay.
I haven't gone too deep into the websites and different programs to reach out, but I've got an email, which is electboone@gmail.com, and Boone on the Ballot, which is my Facebook social media page. My number's published and my address. Write me a letter. Give a call. I love talking to people.
And they'll comment on here, so we'll make sure that if
Absolutely.
there's anything that we need to come back and circle back to, we'll get you back in.
Yep, I found that my coffee budget is my highest political budget so far. I've met with a lot of people who just want to talk about different issues and get a feel for
Yeah.
me, and I love meeting with new people and just hearing their ideas,
That's great.
because that's where I get my ideas from, is the community.
Do you have an event coming up where you're gonna do anything? for
I just got done with a big event and fundraiser. I plan on doing a lot of meet and greets, and then I got a lot of events like these coming up. So those are opportunities to reach broader audiences, get more longer form answers, and again, anybody who wants to reach out and meet with me, I love doing it. So
Awesome.
grab
Yeah.
coffee.
Cool. Thank you for coming again.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me. I
very much.
appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today on the Real Tea Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.